Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of Africa to a land known as the Pearl of Africa, Uganda. Now, Uganda has a history as rich and layered as its famous coffee, and trust me, that's saying something. We're talking political drama, economic roller coasters, and leaders with personalities bigger than a safari truck. Over the next little while, we're going on a journey through time, meeting the presidents who've shaped Uganda from its independence to the present day. We're going to unpack their achievements, their struggles, and maybe, just maybe, try to understand the impact of their decisions on the everyday lives of Ugandans. So buckle up, because as we all know, African history is not a smooth ride. It's a wild safari, full of unexpected turns, bumpy roads, and the occasional lion trying to steal your lunch. And trust me, you do not want to be the guy who loses his lunch to a lion. Just ask Mufasa. Our story begins with a man who was literally born to rule, Sir Edward Mutesa II. See, before Uganda even dreamt of independence, Mutesa was already king, the Kabaka ruling over the powerful Buganda kingdom. Talk about a legacy. When Uganda finally broke free from the shackles of colonialism in 1962, guess who they picked to lead them into this brave new world? Yep, the Kabaka himself, transitioning from king to president. It was a time of hope, a time of change, and Mutesa II was right there, leading the charge. Under his watch, Uganda took its first shaky steps as an independent nation. Think of it like a baby giraffe finding its feet, a little wobbly at first, but with a whole lot of potential. Mutesa helped establish the government, laying the foundation for what Uganda would become. But, and there's always a but, things weren't all sunshine and roses. This is politics, people, not a Disney movie. Power struggles erupted between Mutesa and his prime minister, a fiery fellow named Milton Obote. Let's just say these two were not exactly best friends forever. Their disagreements, fueled by political ambitions and clashing visions for the country, created a rift that would have made the Great Rift Valley look like a crack in the sidewalk. Things came to a head in 1966 when Obote, backed by the army, decided to, how can I put this delicately, we relieve Mutesa of his presidential duties. It wasn't exactly a polite thank you for your service kind of situation. Mutesa, fearing for his life, was forced to flee Uganda, eventually finding refuge in the slightly less sunny climes of England. It was a bitter end for a man who had been both king and president, a man who had seen his nation through its birth only to be cast out by the very people he helped liberate. With Mutesa out of the picture, Milton Obote stepped into the spotlight, becoming the new leading man in the Ugandan political drama. And let me tell you, Obote was not afraid to make a grand entrance. He abolished the traditional kingdoms, including Mutesa's Buganda kingdom, consolidating power and essentially telling the old guard, "It's my way or the highway, folks." Obote's message was clear. Uganda was entering a new era, an era of the common man. And to prove his point, he introduced the Common Man's Charter, a socialist-inspired plan aimed at redistributing wealth and empowering the people. On paper, it sounded pretty good, like a Ugandan utopia where everyone shared and prospered. But as we know, reality has a funny way of messing with even the best-laid plans. Obote's government, despite its good intentions, started to show some cracks. The economy, instead of blossoming like a Ugandan rose, began to wilt under the pressure of his policies. And then there was the whole authoritarianism thing. Obote, it seemed, wasn't a big fan of dissent. He started clamping down on opposition, becoming increasingly reliant on the military to maintain control. It was like watching a tailor try to fix a small tear in a shirt by using a pair of scissors. The solution only made the problem bigger. The very people Obote claimed to be empowering were now living in fear of the government he was building. Little did he know, things were about to get a whole lot worse. Because lurking in the shadows was a man who would plunge Uganda into its darkest chapter yet, a certain General Idi Amin. In 1971, while Obote was out of the country, General Idi Amin, the head of the army, and a man with an ego the size of Lake Victoria, decided it was his time to shine. He launched a military coup, seizing control of Uganda and sending shockwaves across the nation and the world. Amin, a former heavyweight boxing champion, ruled with an iron fist, literally. He was a man of contradictions, known for his charisma and brutal cruelty, his love of flamboyant uniforms, and his utter disregard for human life. Amin declared an economic war, expelling Ugandan Asians from the country and seizing their businesses. It was a move that, while popular with some, decimated the economy and sent Uganda spiraling into chaos. But Amin, always the showman, wasn't content with just ruining the economy. He embarked on a reign of terror, unleashing his infamous State Research Bureau and Public Safety Unit on anyone he perceived as a threat, real or imagined. It was a dark time for Uganda. Thousands of people were imprisoned, tortured, and killed. The country was bleeding, its people living in fear of the very government that was supposed to protect them. Yet, amidst the horrors, Amin continued to build his personality cult, giving himself grandiose titles like His Excellency President for Life, Field Marshal Al-Haji Dr. Idi Amin Dada, VC, DSO, MC, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas and conqueror of the British Empire and Africa in general and Uganda in particular. I mean, come on, with a title like that, you've got to be at least a little bit terrifying, right? Chapter 4, A Glimmer of Hope, the short-lived presidency of Yusuf Lul. In 1979, with Amin's regime crumbling under the weight of its own brutality and international pressure mounting, Tanzanian forces, along with Ugandan exiles, stormed in and drove Amin out of power. It was the end of a nightmare, but the dawn was still a long way off. Enter Yusuf Lul, a respected academic and former UN official, who was chosen to lead the country out of the darkness. Lul inherited a nation in ruins, its economy shattered, its people traumatized, its international reputation in tatters. It was a task that would have made Hercules himself break a sweat. But Lul, a man known for his integrity and commitment to peace, rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He formed a transitional government, promising to restore democracy and the rule of law. He reached out to the international community, seeking aid in trying to rebuild the bridges that Amin had so carelessly blown up. For a brief moment, there was a glimmer of hope in Uganda. People dared to dream again, to believe that maybe, just maybe, their country could heal from the wounds of the past. But Lul's presidency, like a beautiful butterfly, was tragically short-lived. Internal disagreements within the ruling coalition, the ghosts of Amin's reign still haunting the corridors of power, led to his removal from office after just 68 days. It was a cruel reminder that in Uganda, even hope can be fleeting, and the path to peace is often paved with good intentions that never quite reach their destination. Chapter 5, Binaisa's Balancing Act, trying to steady a ship in a storm. Following Lul's removal, Godfrey Binaisa, a seasoned lawyer and politician, stepped into the presidential hot seat. He inherited a country still reeling from the Amin years, its political landscape as fragile as a house of cards in a hurricane. Binaisa, a pragmatic leader with a knack for diplomacy, tried to navigate the treacherous waters of Ugandan politics. He attempted to stabilize the country, restoring some semblance of order and restarting the economy. He also focused on healing the deep divisions within society, urging Ugandans to put the horrors of the past behind them and to work together towards a brighter future. It was a message of unity and reconciliation, a message desperately needed in a nation still haunted by the ghosts of Amin's victims. But Binaisa, despite his best efforts, couldn't escape the long shadow of the military. Factions within the army, still wielding considerable power, viewed him with suspicion, their loyalty as fickle as the Ugandan weather. He tried to appease them, to walk a tightrope between civilian rule and military might, but in the end, it wasn't enough. In 1980, the military commission, led by a familiar face, Paulo Muwanga, staged a coup, removing Binaisa from power. Binaisa's presidency, though well-intentioned, highlighted the fragility of democracy in Uganda, a country where the army often played the role of kingmaker, and civilian leaders were often left dancing to the beat of their drums. Chapter 6, A Brief Interlude, Muwanga's Controversial Intermission. With Binaisa out of the picture, Paulo Muwanga, the man who had orchestrated the coup, stepped in as the interim president. Now, Muwanga was a seasoned politician, a man who knew the ins and outs of Ugandan politics like the back of his hand. But he was also a controversial figure, seen by many as a cunning operator with a penchant for power plays. His brief time in charge did little to dispel these notions. In fact, it only seemed to solidify them. Muwanga's main task was to oversee the 1980 elections, a chance for Uganda to return to democratic rule. However, these elections turned out to be anything but free and fair. Accusations of rigging and manipulation ran rampant, casting a dark cloud over the entire process. When the dust settled, It was Milton Obote, the man who had been ousted by Amin almost a decade earlier, who was declared the winner. Now, whether Obote actually won fair and square, or whether some behind-the-scenes maneuvering was involved, is a debate that still rages on in Uganda today. But one thing's for sure, Muwanga's handling of the elections did little to instill confidence in the country's fragile democracy. Chapter 7. Obote's second act, a familiar play with a tragic ending. And so, Milton Obote returned to power, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of his own political demise. He came back promising economic recovery, national unity, and a return to stability. It was a message that resonated with many Ugandans, weary of years of turmoil and instability. Obote introduced economic reforms, attempting to rebuild what Amin had destroyed and revive the country's fortunes. He also tried to mend fences with the international community, seeking aid and investment to get Uganda back on its feet. But Obote's second act, much like a sequel to a blockbuster movie that didn't live up to the hype, was plagued by the same problems that had plagued his first. The economy, though showing some signs of life, remained fragile. And then, there were the insurgencies. Various rebel groups opposed to Obote's rule and fueled by ethnic tensions and grievances sprung up in different parts of the country. The country was once again on the brink, teetering between hope and despair. Obote, facing mounting pressure and determined to crush the opposition, resorted to increasingly authoritarian tactics. Human rights abuses became widespread, with reports of disappearances, torture, and extrajudicial killings. The very people who had welcomed him back as a savior were now living in fear of his government. It was a tragic fall from grace, a reminder that power, even with the best of intentions, can corrupt, and that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Chapter 8. A short reign and a crushing defeat. The Tito Okello Interlude. In 1985, with the country on the brink of collapse and Obote's government crumbling from within, General Tito Okello, a high-ranking military officer, decided he'd seen enough. He staged a coup, ousting Obote from power and sending him fleeing into exile once again. Okello, a career soldier with little political experience, found himself at the helm of a nation teetering on the precipice. He inherited a country ravaged by war, its economy in shambles, its people exhausted from years of violence and uncertainty. Realizing the enormity of the task before him, Okello surprised many by opting for a path of peace. He initiated peace talks with Yoweri Museveni's National Resistance Army, the most formidable of the rebel groups fighting against Obote's government. It was a bold move, a glimmer of hope in a country starved for it. For a brief moment, it seemed like Uganda might finally be able to silence the guns and find a peaceful way out of the abyss, but it was not to be. The peace talks faltered, mistrust and lingering grievances proving too difficult to overcome. The NRA, sensing an opportunity, launched a final offensive, sweeping through the country and capturing Kampala, the capital city. Okello's government collapsed, his dreams of a peaceful transition crushed under the weight of the NRA's advance. His brief reign served as a stark reminder that in Uganda, even the best intentions could be swept aside by the currents of history, and that the path to peace was often a treacherous one, littered with the wreckage of failed attempts. Chapter 9. Museveni's Marathon, a new era for Uganda. And so, in 1986, Yoweri Museveni, the leader of the victorious NRA, walked into Kampala, a conquering hero in the eyes of many. He had fought a long and bloody guerrilla war, promising to bring peace, stability, and prosperity to a nation ravaged by decades of turmoil. Museveni, a charismatic leader with a vision for a new Uganda, quickly consolidated his power, establishing a new government and embarking on an ambitious program of reconstruction and reconciliation. He promised to heal the wounds of the past, to unite the country, and to usher in an era of economic growth and development. And to be fair, Museveni has delivered on some of his promises. Under his rule, Uganda has experienced relative peace and stability, a welcome respite after years of conflict. The economy has grown, albeit unevenly, and poverty levels have declined, though challenges remain. He's invested in infrastructure, expanded access to education and healthcare, and taken a leading role in regional affairs, raising Uganda's profile on the international stage. Museveni, once a revolutionary, has become a statesman, a fixture on the African political landscape. But Museveni's rule has also been marked by controversy. He's been accused of becoming increasingly authoritarian, cracking down on dissent, stifling the media, and changing the constitution to extend his rule, effectively becoming president for life. His government has been dogged by allegations of corruption and human rights abuses, tarnishing his image as a liberator and raising concerns about Uganda's democratic trajectory. Museveni's legacy, much like his presidency, is a complex and contradictory one, a mix of undeniable achievements and troubling shortcomings. Only time will tell what the future holds for Uganda and for Museveni's legacy. But one thing is for sure, the country and its people will continue to grapple with the challenges of building a stable, prosperous, and truly democratic nation, long after Museveni's marathon presidency finally comes to an end. Chapter 10. The journey continues, Uganda's unfinished story. And there you have it, folks. A glimpse into the tumultuous journey of Uganda's presidents, from the pre-independence era to the present day. From kings turned presidents to military strongmen, from fleeting hopes to enduring challenges, Uganda's story is a testament to the resilience of its people and their enduring hope for a brighter future. Each leader, in their own way, has left an indelible mark on this beautiful nation, shaping its destiny and influencing the lives of millions. As we've seen, it's a story of triumphs and tragedies, of progress and setbacks, a story that continues to unfold even as we speak. So the next time you see Uganda on the map, remember this. It's not just a country on the African continent, it's a nation with a rich history, a vibrant culture, and a people determined to forge their own path, even as they navigate the complexities of their past and the uncertainties of their future. And there you have it, the leaders who have shaped Uganda's history. Each president faced unique challenges and left a distinct mark on the nation's journey. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful content.